The economy is set to contract by more than 7% this year. The government's finances are in a precarious state, and on top of that, we're seeing ongoing power outages. Why should investors choose South Africa?
Well, investors should choose South Africa because it's a land of great opportunity. We know what our challenges and our shortcomings are, and we are in the course of addressing all those challenges and shortcomings. Yes, of course, our economic growth has been paltry, has been rather poor. We know that, and we are taking steps to address that. We're not surprised that the economy is going to contract by some 7% or more. It's because of coronavirus. But even before that, we had our own weaknesses and challenges, and they've just all been brought to bear now by coronavirus. And in many ways, it is almost like a cloud that has a silver lining, because it is enabling us to go down to the root of the problem and begin to address some of those challenges, to embark more vigorously on the reforms that we need to embark upon. The energy challenges are known. We are reforming and restructuring our electricity company, Eskom. We are repackaging it into 3 divisions, and one will focus just on transmission, another one will focus on generation and distribution. And we do believe that by doing so, we will be giving greater capacity and capability to our electricity company. So many of the problems and challenges that we can see, we know them and we are addressing them. So the real issue with us that we're putting before investors is that we know our problems. This is still a land of great opportunity. Come in and invest, and we will work on all these challenges together with all the key role players in our economy. So I think we are in a good place moving forward, dealing with all the challenges.
Mm-hmm. Your investment drive began about 2 years ago, yet investment as a percentage of GDP has been declining since 2016. And the IMF is forecasting that it could reach a record low of 13% this year. When do you expect a turnaround, and is it realistic to expect increased investment before growth recovers?
Well, yes, our investment have been going down in relation to our GDP. And one of the reasons why I, right at the beginning of my tenure as president, focused on attracting investment was to try to correct this. Mm-hmm. And we are in the process of doing so. We set ourselves a goal of attracting $100 billion mm-hmm. into our economy in 5 years. And we are already more than halfway there. Commitments are being made by companies, and many of these commitments are actually being actualized. So attracting investment is in an effort to increase investment vis-a-vis our GDP, and I think we can turn things around quite significantly. But it also means that the public sector, which is government throughout its various entities, also needs to demonstrate its own confidence in the economy of our country. So public sector investment had tapered down, and we now want to boost that. And through the infrastructure play and through refocusing our state-owned enterprises, we are going to be able to do so. And in tandem, we will also see the private sector beginning to invest more and more.
Mr. President, how confident are you that South Africa can avoid a sovereign debt crisis? This, of course, a risk that the Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, highlighted.
We have taken it upon ourselves to draw a line in the debt sand, mm-hmm. and have decided that we are now going to arrest the debt levels, bring them down quite significantly. Over the next 4 years, we want to see our debt being brought down. We're spending far too much money on debt servicing costs. much more, in some cases, more than what we pay for education. And that cannot be. We've got to bring down our debt levels, make them much more manageable, and we are embarking on a variety of schemes, be it stopping wastage, stopping corruption, and with all those measures that we are putting in place, I'm certain that we will be able to bring our debt levels down and avoid what you could call a debt crisis, because we are focused. And we've been open enough by telling the nation that we have too much debt, and a country that needs to grow needs to reduce its debt, and through that we want to be able to generate more debt. And in the end, it is through investment that you get growth. Mm-hmm. And as you get growth, you are then able to collect more revenue through your taxes and be able to reduce debt.
Mm-hmm. One of the biggest risks hanging over the economy, of course, undeniably, is Eskom's debt. When and how will the debt issue be resolved?
Well, Eskom itself is working on boosting its own revenues. Mm-hmm. The payment of its tariffs is very, very important by both corporates as well as municipalities, mm-hmm. as well as ordinary South Africans. So we are looking forward to Eskom being able to boost its debt collection processes, and at the same time, as it boosts its revenue, we want to be able to see how best the debt can be dealt with. Now, as we restructure Eskom, we will also be able to look at its balance sheet, mm-hmm. and know how best the balance sheet of Eskom can be dealt with. When we break it up into generation, transmission, and distribution. So the debt that resides at the top may well need to be dealt with in a particular way. So I think innovative ideas are being put on the table on how to deal with the debt. So we are determined to ensure that Eskom is not bogged down because of the debt, and that Eskom continues to function. Eskom used to be a top-rated company in the world, and over time it has lost that gloss, and we now need to rebuild it to make sure that its finances are in really good condition.
Yes. Bringing government debt down and the budget deficit under control, of course, hinges on a 3-year wage freeze for state workers. And that's been rejected by the unions. It looks like there's a big challenge that you will be facing soon. Is the government still open to negotiations on this matter?
We are currently involved in negotiations with the unions on precisely this matter. The good thing is that none of the parties has walked away from the table. So that is a huge plus, because all the parties are focused to negotiating. So once you have a scenario like that, it gives rise to a lot of hope, a lot of confidence for resolving the problem. So we are involved with the unions, talking to them continuously, and looking at a variety of options of how we can deal with this public servants' pay issue. So I'm sure that we will be able to find answers.
However, these are very difficult times, Mr. President. I mean, how will it be for you politically? Do you think that you have enough support within your own party to be able to continue with this particular wage freeze over the next 3 years or so?
Well, yes, there is. There resides quite a lot of support within the party, because all this is really based on the realism of the situation. It's not something that somebody thumbsucks and dreams about. It is the reality of our situation. And I often find that when people deal with the reality of a given situation, they come to terms with it, and then they begin to act accordingly.
You've made the fight against corruption one of the key pillars of your economic recovery plan. And they've recently been a series of high-profile arrests, including that of the party's Secretary General Ace Magashule. Should he step aside from his post?
Well, as we met as the top officials, we've been discussing this matter. This matter is going to be discussed also at our National Executive Committee. So it is a matter that is current in the ANC with regard to the implementation of our conference resolution on precisely this issue of stepping aside. So I'd like to allow the National Executive Committee to apply its mind on this issue, and thereafter we will have a much better way forward.
Just to follow up on that, Mr. President, you were very stern when you said officials of the party who are possibly implicated in corruption or allegations thereof should step down. Will you be pushing for him to step down? And why has he not stepped down yet, seeing as this was something that you communicated as coming straight from the top 6 officials of the party?
Well, as I said, the National Executive Committee also commissioned the national officials to go and look at this matter closely and to come up with, if you like, modalities or ways in which this resolution can be implemented. That's where we are now. So the ANC is going to give consideration to this matter and then make its decision known to everyone.
Now, Mr. President, South Africa's economy continues to suffer due to the fallout, of course, of the coronavirus, as many other economies have been as well. Do you envision a rebound before the widespread distribution of a vaccine?
Well, everybody's looking forward to the distribution of the vaccine, and we all pinning our hopes on the efficacy of a really good vaccine. And I think we've been through the worst of the worst, when we had a lockdown, a 5 lockdown alert level. And I think that having gone through the worst, we should now maintain our health protocols and try to protect ourselves as much as possible. And I believe that that is something that we are capable of doing, whilst, of course, we wait for the magic wand, which is a vaccine. Once the magic wand comes, we will be able to vaccine many people.
And speaking of that magic wand, just lastly, Mr. President, are you confident that South Africa can secure sufficient supplies of a vaccine once its efficacy has been proven? And also, how long do you think it will take before we get there, before we get that vaccine widely available?
Well, the pundits about vaccines are saying mid of next year is when we will see the light of a vaccine. So we wait. We're not scientists, they know better. But at the same time, we want to secure as many supplies of this vaccine as possible. In fact, for the entire continent, not only for South Africa. So it's absolutely critical that this matter should be looked at carefully and properly. And we will be deploying our people in the various structures, even of the world, to make sure that Africa is not left behind. Africa should be well positioned when it comes to a vaccine. I have set up a task team at the African Union, made up of a number of colleagues, and the mandate I've given them is we must make sure that the African continent does get its own slug of a vaccine whenever it becomes available. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you so much for your time today, sir. We really, really appreciate it and look forward to engaging you further.
Thank you so much.